First of all, good afternoon to all. I am Becky Gauci from the technology group. With me there's Luisa, Hannah, and Luigi. We were tasked to figure out all the technical difficulties that the other groups would come across and the technical aspects that would be required on Mars. We decided to split this into 5 different groups. We have robotics that will be explained by Luisa. Then there is navigation by Luigi, communication by myself, then biotechnology by Hannah, and then Luigi will be doing waste management.
So if we're going to plan on living on Mars, robots are going to be a huge aid in helping humans live there. Regarding robotics, I split it into 2 aspects, the physical aspect and the intelligent aspect. Regarding the physical aspect, we'll need drilling robots to collect materials, but also before collecting materials, we plan on sending these robots before the humans arrive to Mars to create a spacious environment for the colony. Now, how will these robots be able to work with the conditions on Mars? 2 problems we had were the radioactivity and the Martian dust. The radioactivity can damage electronics and materials over time. So the solution I found was to use polycarbonate shells with zinc oxide and titanium oxide, and these will block and scatter harmful UV light, which the robots won't wear out as easily. For the Martian dust, the dust particles can get into the way of the equipment, as Martian dust is much finer than dust on Earth. I found this method called nanoconing, which is using a very intense laser, which melts certain particles on the material, and once switched off, it cools down very quickly, which creates tiny spikes in the material as shown there, but on a much smaller scale. This reduces the contact, and so the dust particles will simply slide off with the force of gravity. Now, transporting the robots, how are we going to get them to Mars? I thought that the most efficient way to do this was to make them fall on Earth and ship them with rockets, as making robots require many materials and a lot of space. The data centers. These data centers require a lot of space and also produce a lot of heat, and so they need water for cooling. To not waste water, we created this closed cycle where the water captures heat from the data centers, and it will be around 35 to 65 degrees Celsius. And this water can be used for heating in the habitat, so for the greenhouses or heat exchangers. Once this water cools, it can be reused again for cooling the data centers. Now, if we're going to plan on living in a world with robots, we need to find a way for the robots to adapt to humans, not only for humans to adapt to robots. Firstly, how will we distribute the jobs there? Humans will have to take care of the people management and psychology issues, as human-to-human contact will be much better for these jobs. The concept of operation. Robots may be able to do the hands-on work of the operation, but the actual brain of the surgery will need to be a human in case of any malfunctions. The humans also take care of on-site troubleshooting and brainstorming, although robots will also be able to have a say in the brainstorming, but final decisions would be done by humans. Robots can take care of analyzing large databases and any manual or repetitive work. They can also take care of the very dangerous job that might harm any humans. AI bias. AI bias is when an artificial intelligence creates unfair outcomes, usually due to previous human prejudices. I found 3 solutions to this. Demographic parity, which means that everyone will have an equal outcome, no matter what. But this doesn't account for people that might need special treatment, for example, in a school environment. So I did pick this as the option. Equalized odds, which is equalizing the errors of the robots. So if a neurodivergent person has a 20% error chance of getting the wrong diagnosis, and a neurotypical person has a 4% chance, the robot gives the neurotypical person also a 20% chance. This technically does equalize it, but it's not ideal for the environment. Therefore, I chose this solution, individual fairness, where the AI will group similar people and give them similar outcomes. This has its own cons, as it needs constant monitoring, it's more complex, and it needs rich, high-quality data. But it is the most equitable option as it reduces systematic disadvantages, and it's less likely to unintentionally discriminate. The AI will section people by their skills, learning or work style, experience, and cognitive skills. Of course, there will be errors at first, but this will guarantee long-term fairness as we improve the artificial intelligence of robots. Now, this technology can also be used in separate aspects in other forms, such as navigation, which I can pass on to Luigi.
So thank you. I will be first showing you how we will navigate within the colony and also outside the colony to explore. So first we considered inside the colony, and we decided that instead of roads and cars, which may cause pollution like we have on Earth, we use travelators. Travelators are basically those that we commonly see in airports. They are like escalators but flat on the ground, and since this is a small colony of only 10,000 people, we can use these and even we can use them for disabled people that may need also wheelchairs. These will cost around $452,000 per 100 meters. And we made an estimate along with infrastructure that we will need around 8.4 kilometers, which will cost around $38 million, which also the usage of dollars will be explained to you more by economy. Now for outside the colony, we made an autonomous Mars bus. So this bus will have seats for around 50 passengers, and it will also have baggages and sensors to sense the regolith and maybe even materials that we need. It will cost around $880 million, and obviously this is a very high price, but obviously due to it being on Mars, the gravity, a lot of sensors, the baggage, and obviously a lot of passengers with space for their spacesuits because they need oxygen, because they will not be inside the colony, it will amount to $880 million per bus. We consider that 3 is the right amount because obviously we calculated the cargo space in the bus and saw that if these voyages could be regular with our fuel amounts, 3 would be the right amount, and that would cost $2.64 billion. Thank you.
Communication. As probably a lot of you have realized that Earth and Mars are nowhere close to each other. In terms of the whole solar system, they are, but in terms for humans, they're not. Now, as a little bit of understanding, communication between Mars and Earth at its best would take around 4 minutes, but at its worst, it would take around closer to 24 and 25 minutes. Yet there's still one problem with communication, is that when Earth and Mars are on the opposite side of the solar system and the sun is in between, we can't exactly send radio waves or any other form of communication through the sun. So we decided to use a CubeSat satellite. Now the CubeSat is a small communication-specific satellite, and we decided to launch the satellite to orbit around the L4 Lagrange point. Now this is possible because the satellite is orbiting around the sun, but once Earth reaches close to it, it will bring it back to orbit around this point. So the L4 Lagrange point, it doesn't really have anything there, but because of Earth's gravitational pull and the sun's pull, it will appear to be orbiting around nothing. Now this will cost around $300 million total. This total isn't just the satellite though. It's also using transmitters on Earth and Mars, so it includes the price to the transmitter on Earth and the price to send the transmitter to Mars. Now, another form of communication needed will be communication on the surface of Mars. This will mostly be used to communicate between expedition teams and maybe in the future between other colonies that are located in other places. Now, this would be done by using signal towers that are close to the colony in pair with drones. These drones will be equipped with, depending on needs, they could use either something to carry cargo that is not able to be fit inside of the buses, or they could have cameras or a mix of both. Now, a method we decided to use to prevent dust from being a problem, and the dust would not be, and then the dust wouldn't block the radio signals, is electrodynamic dust removal, or EDS in short. This would sort of use electromagnetism as a shield to prevent dust from covering the antenna and the radio tower. Now, inside the colony, communication will be very similar to what we have on Earth, but there will be some differences because obviously the colony was going to be underground, so you will have the Mars, you'll have problems with walls and corners, where instead of using wireless networks, you'd use fiber optic cables and that. Then there will be a PA system and a VoIP IP phone network. PA system would be a set of speakers that announcements can be shared on, and the VoIP IP phones are sort of like the old landlines, but more advanced with screens integrated inside of them, so that you can talk with other people inside.
So one of the many aspects of technology is biotechnology, and I'll be focusing on that. So what exactly is biotechnology? So biotechnology is the use of living organisms, cells, and biological systems to develop products or technologies that would include both human life and the environment. Now, one of the main things that we can do with biotechnology includes the pasteurization of milk. Now, traditional pasteurization of milk involves heating the milk to a certain degree so that the harmful bacteria can be eliminated. But the thing with milk is that it contains antimicrobial proteins such as lysozyme and lactoferrin. So by using biotechnology, what we're going to do is that we're going to boost the amount of antimicrobial protein so that the pasteurization of milk can sort of be done naturally. Although it is used, biotechnology plays a role in it. Another thing, traditional way of pasteurizing milk will involve heat, and using heat energy on Mars will not be efficient as energy needs to be conserved as much as possible. So the method that we will use is this. We'll find an organism which contains the antimicrobial protein, such as lysozyme, and we're going to extract the gene using gene editing technology, such as CRISPR. And we're going to insert the lysozyme gene into yeast. Now, what the yeast does is it will act like a sort of factory to multiply or boost the production of the antimicrobial proteins. Then we'll grow the yeast in a bioreactor, as yeast cannot grow in the open Martian environment as the conditions are not optimal. Then we'll harvest the lysozyme protein, and finally we will add the purified lysozyme into the milk so that it can be pasteurized. Now this obviously would not require heat. So I talked about gene editing technologies and engineering genetics, and I've also talked about CRISPR. What is CRISPR? CRISPR is a tool that scientists use so that they can target specific DNA, and they can use it to either remove, change, or even add certain DNA to that organism. Another aspect of biotechnology is biomining. Now, what is biomining? Biomining uses specially selected or genetically engineered microorganisms so that they can extract valuable minerals and metals. The advantage of using this is that it would not need heavy machinery.
Now, this would really solve the problem of transporting materials from Earth to Mars because obviously heavy machinery would not be ideal for transporting from Earth to Mars. So biomining will really help with that. Well, why biomining on Mars? Well, biomining can be, so NASA's Curiosity rover has found traces of vanadium, which is an element, and it is found as a trace element. Now, you can use the biomining microbes to access vanadium, and they can perform the extraction of vanadium. Now, why vanadium exactly? So vanadium has several uses. So one of them would be using it for strengthening alloys, for construction, and for spacecraft parts. It can also be used as a storage system for energy, as a long-term rechargeable storage system for energy. And it can also be used as a catalyst in several chemical reactions. Now, I want to emphasize on the second point, especially because, the main resource of energy will be nuclear fusion on Mars. But if anything goes wrong, we obviously would need a second source. And the next best thing that we can do is solar energy. Now, the thing with solar energy is that during dust storms, it would not work as efficient. And also, solar panels has a problem that it would not work during night. So, and also the intensity of sun on Mars is way less than on Earth. So we need an effective way of storing the energy, and that is exactly where vanadium comes in play. So vanadium redox flow batteries can be used to store the solar energy. These are the list of microbes that can be used to mine vanadium. Now, obviously, these has to be transported from Earth, and these will be put in bioreactors so that the vanadium can be extracted. Finally, radiation is a problem in Mars, as well as the constant temperature fluctuation from day to night. So a specific species is called Bladiosporium superiosperma, which is a radiotrophic fungi. Now, in the future, so by 2075, the CRISPR genetic editing tool that I mentioned will obviously improve greatly. So what we can do is we can sort of extract the radiation protection gene from the species, and we could insert it into the vanadium biomining microbe so that it can sort of, you wouldn't need the bioreactors, and it can sort of do its job in open air. And so now we've talked about how biology will help, biotechnology will help us to live on Mars, and now Luigi will be talking more about how waste recycling is done on Mars.
Thank you, and I will be talking to you about waste recycling on Mars. Obviously, this is important as shown in the video prior to all the presentations, that every drop shall not be wasted. We took that pretty literally. We, as done also on the ISS, we will be saving and trying to do as best as possible closed loop cycles. So first, we are using AMOXI. AMOXI stands for Mars Oxygen in Situ Resource Utilization Experiment. And practically what it does is absorb CO2 from the atmosphere and produces oxygen. Obviously, we do not need carbon dioxide to live and need much more oxygen. So we will have MOXIs. It has already been tested on Mars and with great success. So we know that the probability of this succeeding will be very high even in the colony. We will be buying 20 MOXIs. Now this may seem as few, a bit of MOXIs, but plants and food will be also creating a lot of oxygen from their plantations and such. Obviously, we also limited the number of MOXIs according to the price, because 20 MOXIs will cost $1.17 billion. We also are going to conserve human urine. Human urine is also conserved on board the ISS. On board the ISS, urine is changed into water, drinkable water. And as shown on the flowchart that I made, human urine will eventually result in nitrogen, drinkable water, a bit more water in the end, and also hydrogen. We will use urease enzyme hydrolysis, which is the process where urease, which is an enzyme that breaks down urea into ammonia and carbon dioxide when combined with water, breaks down the residue from evaporating water from the human urine and breaks it down into ammonia and CO2. Then from ammonia we will do chemical oxidization, which will split the ammonia into hydrogen and to nitrogen and 3H2, which we will then use along with the oxygen provided from the MOXIE, which will provide more water and also hydrogen. This eventually will bring us water and nitrogen, which we need to dilute the oxygen, which will be breathed in. Because as you probably know, we do not breathe in pure oxygen. We need it to be diluted, and a source of that is nitrogen. So we will also be recycling human sweat. Now, as I found the diagram over here of what is done on board the ISS. It also contains the urine, but we made a more proficient system for the urine. But it also shows the sweat over there where I circled in the marker. And it shows that it's like a machine that will extract from the head of the person. And that is needed on board the ISS. But on Mars, sweat will not evaporate into the atmosphere because of the thin atmosphere. Thus, we can just use a towel and use a dehumidifier to extract sweat and store it. Also from the sweat, and then we can produce some salts, but less than from urine, and also produce more water. We also will be using human feces. Human feces, as shown in the diagram, and also with other organic biosolids, can be put into a digester, an anaerobic digester to be precise, and they will produce methane, which, as you all know, is a very important gas for a colony on Mars, and also fertilizer, which will be used further by the food team. Obviously, the fertilizer will support their plant growth, and methane on Earth is used for maybe cooking and heat, but we can also use it as fuel. Then the food team will also be bringing chickens and goats to Mars, as they will explain further. Chickens do not produce urine, and their feces may be just used as a fertilizer directly. So is goat feces, it will just be used as a fertilizer directly. But goat urine may be utilized. They will store it, they will tell you how they will store it, but we will find the way how to utilize it. So we will practically eventually split the urine into water, urea, which will produce nitrogen and hydrogen, and salts, which obviously is needed for the food. We will be doing that by evaporating setting the temperature of the goat urine to 100 degrees, where we can boil the water, but the residue will be left there. Obviously, then we will be getting water, but it will not be obviously safe to drink. Thus, we will use a reverse osmosis to purify the water, and it will become drinkable. And then, with distillation, we will produce urea, and from urea we can use, photolysis. We can use photolysis from the urea to produce nitrogen and hydrogen, and eventually we can also get salts and other organics. So this is our total cost. It may seem like a bit too much zeros. It is actually $12 billion. And some teams may actually have a bit more, so this may not seem as much. But obviously, economy team will explain a bit further about this. So I will also do So I also have prepared a small recap. So first, Luisa talked to you a bit about robotics and how robots and AI can coexist with humans. Then I myself have shown you about how we can get around